And I want to invite our next guest on, who is no stranger to the Breitbart audience, a man who is always the tip of the spear when it comes to issues that concern our security. It is Frank Gaffney, the president of the Center for Security Policy. And Frank, I want to thank you for coming on the program tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, Rebecca. Thank you for having me.
Now, Frank, I just want to ask you about we're looking ahead towards some of the challenges and some of the big issues that we're going to be facing in the new year. And one of these issues that sort of is under the radar a bit right now, but we think might be an important issue to focus on, is this question of the transgender in the military. And now, this move to open the military to transgender servicemen. Can you explain this issue to us? Walk us through what this is and what the coming fights ahead are on this issue?
Well, I can try. It's a little bit of through a glass darkly here, Rebecca, because part of it is, as you say, the issue of the specific individuals that are seeking to be admitted into the military, who describe themselves as transgender. I think clinically they have a psychological disorder known as gender dysphoria. But because they've become, the latest protected class of the left, it's really not possible to talk much about this.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of the kinds of impact that bringing in people with a known medical condition that requires treatment. And I don't mean sex change therapy or hormone therapy. Those are now much sought after by many of these people and would have to be provided to them were they to be introduced into the military. But I want to just focus on an underlying problem, which is obscured by some of the controversies about whether those folks should be in or shouldn't be in the military. The president has said explicitly they should not be. And he has issued a direct order to the Defense Department, not with respect to those number, and who knows how many there are. I think it's a relatively small number that are already in the military, but with respect to recruiting, enlisting more of them in the next few days. But the issue that really is at the heart of this matter, as far as I'm concerned, is does the president have the unquestioned authority under the Constitution of the United States, Article 2, which vests exclusively in him the role of Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces? Or does that authority now get subjected to the whim of any federal judge in the United States judiciary? And where this thing stands right now and why this is so important to be talking about, and I'm so grateful to you for taking this on tonight, is it appears that all other things being equal, unless the president himself countermands this state of play, the Department of Justice is not going to ask the Supreme Court to stay a judge's order, which has now been adopted by several other courts, including 2 circuit courts, to compel the Department of Defense to begin enlisting more transgender individuals starting on the 1st, or I guess effectively the 2nd of January. So this comes down to, I believe, nothing short of a constitutional crisis. And it's obscured by the specifics of this particular matter, and some people don't want to talk about it. And General Mattis in the Defense Department seems to be favorably disposed to accommodating these folks, despite the president's direct order. But at the end of the day, make no mistake about it, what is in question is if federal judges can tell the president who will be admitted into the military, presumably they can also tell him what those people can be asked to do. Perhaps you could even get the president announcing that we have to go to war to protect our people against some imminent national threat. And some federal judge somewhere on the bench, presumably an Obama appointee, maybe a Clinton appointee, who knows, will say, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I disagree. I give you an injunction on going to war. Rebecca, that would be fatal, quite possibly, to our republic. And I think the precedent for it is being set as we speak. And I pray the president will hear us tonight and decide he's going to fight this effort by the judiciary to essentially intrude upon and eviscerate his authority as commander-in-chief.
You know, it does. It seems like it's just a classic case of judicial overreach and just a complete lack of respect for the separation of powers here. But I have to ask, what can be done? What is your recommendation for that the Trump administration do to fight this?
Well, the first order of business should be for the White House to direct the Justice Department to seek a stay, an emergency stay, by the Supreme Court. I'm told that can be done exclusively by the Chief Justice in this case, John Roberts. I believe that he is sensitive to these issues of separation of power. I think he, as a constitutional expert, understands the president has this authority as the commander-in-chief. This is not something that the courts can intrude upon as they are now. If he issues a stay, then there's an opportunity for this thing to be properly adjudicated, for the study that is now underway in the Defense Department to proceed, and for no further transgender individuals to be introduced into the military. This won't affect those that are already in. Everybody understands that they're going to be kept there and accommodated as best we can. But the question of whether perhaps thousands more start showing up at recruiting centers on Tuesday is very much in play, and that is the first order of business. The second is I would hope that the president would try to establish through another order to the Defense Department and, by the way, the Homeland Security Department, because it's responsible for the Coast Guard, that anybody who is brought in under these existing court rulings, if they are not stayed, is done on a conditional basis. It seems to me that's the bare minimum that can be done here. In the event that the courts ultimately, I believe at the Supreme Court level, come to their senses and prevent this travesty, that those folks who have been enlisted under these current circumstances will not, in fact, be continued in the military. I believe that's a safety valve on this, and it seems to me to be a sensible one.
You know, it's amazing to me what in the world justification any court would have to stop the president from making an order like this. Did they suggest that he was being unfairly discriminatory towards the transgenders, and that's why there was no reason to block them? Was that really it was essentially he has no reason to block any of these people, so therefore they have to remove this order. I'm interested in that. This
gets back to my opening point. This is a bit muddled, to be frank.
Yeah.
I think partly it's because the courts are looking at some of the mixed signals that have been coming out of the Defense Department. There's an individual by the name of Anthony Curta, who has been the principal architect of much of the social engineering of the Obama administration, who, of all people, has been nominated by President Trump to be a principal deputy undersecretary of defense for personnel, and therefore entrusted with the responsibility for deciding what should be done on this matter at this point. I mean, you're not going to be surprised to know that some of the things that he's been doing to this point are signaling to the court that, well, maybe this isn't such a big deal, and maybe they'll study it and come to the right answer, which is to accommodate diversity, that everybody has a right to serve in the military.
No, they don't, though. That's what's ridiculousness.
Of course they don't.
I mean, if you're like overweight, you don't have a right to serve in the military.
Or
or flat-footed or any of that stuff.
Let alone psychological conditions that are disorders.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, this is the absurdity, the fact that we are at this point in 2018, in almost 2018, it's kind of scary. But I want to thank you for coming on tonight and explaining this so carefully, what needs to be done. And thank you so much for keeping us informed going forward. So I hope everybody, I'm encouraging our listeners to go to the Center for Security Policy website and follow your work. And you can also follow Frank's work at Breitbart.com, since you often publish with us, and we often have you every single week, usually on our Breitbart News Daily, our morning show with Alex Marlowe, our editor-in-chief. So I thank you so much for coming on tonight, Frank, and I wish you and your family a very happy New Year.
And you too, Becca. Thank you so much.